J.D. Vance has been trying to justify the murder of Renee Nicole Good by Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who shot her in the face 3 times, in a multitude of ways. But there's one that I haven't seen people talk about yet. Now, when Vice President J.D. Vance, who is a Marine who deployed to Iraq, he was there in the same year that I was, he started talking about Jonathan Ross's history. But in giving Jonathan Ross's background, he was creating a different permission structure beyond the absolute immunity that he claims that federal agents have, which is not something that is lawful at all. ICE agents have something called qualified immunity, which is bullshit. We can get into that another time. But this is where J.D. Vance is getting into not a legal permission structure, but a psychological permission structure. And this is something that negatively impacts veterans like myself, especially those of us with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Now, when Vance got on that podium at the White House and started talking about Jonathan Ross's background, he was describing a history of service, but not in a way that emphasized his desire to serve his country. He emphasized his service as something that was traumatic, and therefore one should expect that he reacts with violence when he's scared. And one of the specific things that he said was that this ICE agent had been previously in an altercation involving a vehicle where he was dragged. Now, what J.D. Vance is trying to communicate is that you, the listener, the American citizen, the voter, should assume that if an ICE agent has ever had a negative experience, that justifies the use of deadly force if they're ever reminded of that again. He's describing PTSD. Again, not as a reason that Jonathan Ross shouldn't be carrying a firearm, shouldn't be on duty, shouldn't be dealing with traffic stops. What J.D. Vance is saying is that if a federal agent has PTSD, then they're immune from their decision-making. But what J.D. Vance doesn't seem to care about is he is actually giving the potential prosecution, or if Renee Nicole Good's family sues, it'll give their lawyers ammunition to say that clearly the government knew that Jonathan Ross was trigger happy and that he should not have had a firearm. Now, I am not saying that people with PTSD should blanket not have access to firearms. In fact, I am a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have always owned firearms. I, because of my job, have a concealed carry permit. J.D. Vance should not be promoting the idea that veterans with PTSD are inherently dangerous, or that anyone should expect a veteran who has PTSD from military service or service as a law enforcement officer that they should be more dangerous than other law enforcement officers. Renee Nicole Good was murdered by Jonathan Ross, who was a firearms instructor, who is extremely experienced, who knows the rules of engagement, who knows the law. Jonathan Ross violated department policy when he stepped in front of that moving vehicle. He also violated policy and violated the law when he shot Renee Nicole Good when she was no danger to him or any other agent. It doesn't matter if he thought that he was in danger. He was not in danger. That is the fact. Being delusional is also not an excuse for murder. And J.D. Vance, my fellow veteran, should know better. Actually, the worst part of this is he does know better.